coming hard.
I'm gonna eat your ass like a pot of collard greens, baby.
Whoa! 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 Whoa!
He got a bicycle.
I'm here to get out with the big boys.
It's handling the Big Johnson.
From anal bleeding. What?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Wrestling All Day podcast. Last week, we did not have an episode due to me being I was just shattered. I woke up, I was super sick, sore throat, a little bit of everything bothering me that day. But I'm feeling better today, and, well, why don't we start off today's episode with some news from today. It's not really news, more along the lines of another controversy. It's never a day on wrestling Twitter if there's not some sort of controversy. So, as a lot of people know, last night, Kalisto, I don't know what he goes by now. I think it's Samurai Del Sol or Sammy Del Sol. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't want to screw it up. But anyway, Kalisto made his debut for AEW last night alongside of Aerostar, when they challenged the Revival for the Lucha Libre Tag Team Champions. And today, or last night, I believe it was, Kalisto made the tweet about how he was excited for AEW, and he thanked John Huber, of course, the late, great Brody Lee. He thanked John Huber for, quote-unquote, helping him get there. And, well, Wrestling Twitter has to be in a meltdown this morning because Chris Jericho commented on Kalisto's post, retweeting it, quoting it, saying, you spelled his name wrong. Well, Kalisto responded pretty normally, like, not anything, like, on the nose or anything. And then Amanda Huber chimed in after a lot of people started, like, grilling the shit out of Chris Jericho. Amanda Huber and Jericho both kind of assuming that Kalisto's just using John Huber's name for clout, but I mean, you gotta realize that Kalisto debuted around the same time that the Wyatt family did. You know, Kalisto was in NXT in 2013, 2014, and they wrestled in the main roster multiple times. So, I mean, they had to be at least casual friends. So, I mean, for Kalisto to say that, you know, thanking Brody for helping him get to where he's at today, I mean, it's not really that far off, you know. I don't really see that as clout chasing. I see that as a man paying respects to somebody who's no longer with us. And Jericho and Amanda Huber, and of course, all of the AEW cultists are defending that toxic childlike behavior. But that's what they do, that's what AEW does, and that's why I refuse to watch their shows. I really don't have anything else to cover for AEW. I really don't care about AEW, and I know a lot of that's going to piss a lot of you guys off. I don't care about the quote-unquote Wednesday night wars that went on. I don't care. You know, I've seen the highlights of AEW. I see the highlights almost every week of AEW on social media, and it gets worse and worse, you know. You talk about all these guys like Punk coming in, Punk complaining about how these guys were taking his spot, and then he comes in, and he's now, 5-0? He's beaten Hobbs, he's beaten Matt Sydal, he beat Darby Allin, he beat all these guys, and everybody's like, well, they look strong in defeat. That's not really the case, because where the fuck's Hobbs now, you know? So, I really don't see a point in Punk complaining, and he still bitches to this day about the WWE, but if it wasn't for WWE, CM Punk wouldn't be a star, so just swallow your humble pie, Punk, and just accept the fact that WWE made you who you are, and AEW is just a place you're going to go, air your grievances, bitch a little bit, and the hype has already died out. The hype for CM Punk has already died. I didn't care when he came back. I still don't care. I haven't cared about CM Punk since 2014, and that's going to continue until the day I'm dead and in the ground. But I do want to talk a little bit about what we saw at Halloween Havoc. We did see the NXT Championship match between Braun Breaker and Tommaso Ciampa. A great ending to a pretty decent card. The first match, the women's ladder match, Io Shirai took a nasty fucking bump. And I hope and pray that Io Shirai is alright, because that was a disgusting bump off the ladder. When she smacked that ladder, the ladder she was on bounced up in the air. I thought that was going to come down on top of her. But she took a nasty fall to the outside. And in the end, JC Jane and Gigi Dolan are the new NXT Women's Tag Team Champions. And the really weird pairing of Zoe Stark expect to see not only EO on the main roster, but expect to see a lot of different people coming up to the main roster now. We know Austin Theory is on the main roster now. I don't think Johnny Gargano is going to be in NXT much longer. Kyle O'Reilly's contract is coming up. Kyle O'Reilly is either A, going to pull an Adam Cole and disappear to AEW, where I think he'd be a perfect fit because nobody there has any charisma. And that's where Kyle O'Reilly would fit perfectly, because as great as a wrestler as Kyle O'Reilly is, he has zero charisma, and I think he's just absolutely awful. But his contract's coming up, so he's either going to stay and go to the main roster, stay in NXT, or he's going to disappear and show up on AEW or Impact or whatever. But I do want to talk about a little bit more about the show that's coming up in my area. That is going to be PPW Traditions. And my boys, South Philly's finest, are going to be teaming up with Terrence and Terrell Hughes, the children of Devon Dudley. Now, I doubt Devon's going to be there because Devon is an agent for the WWE, but they will be teaming with Devon's sons, both Terrence and Terrell Hughes. I'm not 100% sure who they're facing. I believe they're facing Elijah Eden. I don't think that's right. I think Elijah Eden actually may be involved in a tag team match, a mixed tag team match later that night. But I do know there will be a 30-minute Iron Man match between Davey Richards and Casey Navarro. Davey Richards, of course, a lot of American fans know him from his time in MLW now, but mainly through his time with the Wolves in TNA and the American Wolves in Ring of Honor. But yeah, him and Casey Navarro, who was recently on AEW within the last couple of months, and as well as MLW. Both of them have signed recently with MLW, had a lot of appearances for them. So they're going to compete in a 30-minute Iron Man match. That's going to be an absolute... That's going to probably be my favorite match of the night. So on top of the 30-minute Iron Man match and the tag team match, the PPW World Championship is going to be on the line when Bro Keller defends against Joey Martinez, the closer, Joey Martinez. Going to be challenging for that championship. But from there, I'm not sure, 100% sure of the card, but I will definitely be there. So if you're going to be in the Broadheadsville area, November 13th, come out and see me. Carlito's going to be wrestling. He'll be signing autographs. He'll be brought in by Cage Promotions. I got to put them over. So yeah, come check that out and watch some awesome wrestling. And that's really it for what I got to say for PPW. I missed the last show, and I'm kind of kicking myself in the ass for doing it because the last show I was there for was their September show. And that was their anniversary show, and that was packed to the brim. Their October show, I heard it was a little bit of a lighter house, but it was still a fun show. And I'm definitely hoping for this one that it's going to be another packed show where we blow the roof off the building. So I'll be getting my tickets on Friday. Make sure you get your tickets. Make sure you get your asses there. PPW, Broadheadsville, Pennsylvania. If you haven't seen it, see it. If you haven't checked it, check it. And if you haven't gone, go. I do want to shout out, before we go any further, our sponsor for this episode. Our sponsor today, Crystal Lake Creations, our sponsor for the last couple episodes. So thank you very much to them for sponsoring us. You can find their work at etsy.com/CLakeCreations. And you can find all of their custom masks and other art designs that they have made. The prices are fair. At least I think they are. The prices are fair. The reviews are great. And all the quality you can expect from a Friday the 13th mask, it's there. It's high quality. It's hand-painted. It's beautiful work. And if you want to check them out, etsy.com/shop/C-Lake Creations for Crystal Lake Creations or Crystal_Lake_Creations on Instagram. So with that in mind, I do want to move on. I haven't been watching Raw and SmackDown lately. I really haven't. The last thing I watched was Crown Jewel, and I did my Crown Jewel recap, but I cannot bring myself to watch wrestling just weekly anymore. I don't hate... I hate the fact... This is what I hate. I hate the fact that wrestling for me isn't as fun as it used to be. When I was a kid, I absolutely loved wrestling. I still do love wrestling to this day. I wouldn't have a fucking podcast named Wrestling All Day if I didn't love wrestling. But it's not fun for me anymore. And no amount of guys falling into fucking orange juice, and no amount of, Xavier Woods being king of the ring, no amount of the power of positivity of Big E being the champion, no amount of anything that AEW does or Impact does. Wrestling's not fun for me to watch unless I'm there. And I don't know if that's anybody else feels that way, but if I'm not at the show, I usually don't watch it unless it's a pay-per-view. The weekly shows for Raw, NXT, Smackdown, AEW, Impact, I haven't watched Impact since... I can't even tell you the last time I watched a full episode of Impact. I think the last time I watched a full episode of Impact was 2017. It might have been 16, because I'm pretty sure Kurt Angle was still there. So it might have been 2016. I know I went to an Impact show in 2016, but the last time I watched one on TV, probably that episode that was taped there was the last time I watched an episode of Impact. So that was definitely 2016. Impact for me, you got the Decay, you got Rosemary. I know some of the stuff that goes on. I know you got Rosemary with the Decay, with Crazy Steve, and whoever the fuck that big bull guy is. I think that's Black Taurus from Lucha Libre AAA. I could be wrong. I have no idea. But I know two wrestlers that dress like that. But I'm pretty sure that's Black Taurus from AAA. But either way, these wrestling shows anymore, I can't bring myself to watch 3 hours of Raw. 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, an hour or 2 hours of NXT, 2 hours of AEW, 2 hours of Impact, an hour of Impact, whatever. It just gets to be too much. And I do enjoy wrestling all day. That is true. I know I said that in the first episode. Wrestling has literally defined my life. But I cannot bring myself to really just enjoy the weekly shows as much as I used to. Especially, I think when that really started for me, probably around 2011, 2012-ish, when I started kind of fading out more and more and more and more from Raw and SmackDown, and Impact. And then AEW started back up. I watched a couple episodes of AEW. I know I watched the Brody tribute episode just a few months ago, and the one they did for him when he passed away back in December. I know I watched those. I watched the pay-per-views. That's really it. I watch the wrestling pay-per-views anymore, and that's really honestly it. I can't really bring myself to enjoy the weekly stuff anymore, and I don't want to keep repeating myself, but there's nothing interesting. I only tune in if I see something on Twitter, and if I see something on Twitter that's happening on Raw, I'll tune in real quick to see it. But if I miss it, I'm not going to watch the rest of the episode and wait for the recap. Or if I know something big's going to happen, I'll tune in. But other than that, I'm not even ready for Survivor Series this year. Survivor Series is one of my favorite pay-per-views of the year. But this year, Survivor Series is in 20 days? Less than 20 days? It's like 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away, and they got no build-up for it. I don't know a single match that's going to be on the Survivor Series card, and Survivor Series is literally November 21st. So, who the hell knows what's going on over there in the world of WWE? But I know they got to do something. Because, if they can make the show... It's 3 hours for Raw. Raw does not need to be 3 hours. It starts at 8 and goes off at 11. If it's a special edition episode, yes, that's fine. But Raw did not need to go 3 hours almost 10 years ago, and it did not need to stay 3 hours up until just now. Raw could have went back to 2 hours 5 years ago, and I don't think anybody would have complained. Just 3 hours of Raw is way too much. It's more time for commercials, more filler bullshit that it doesn't make sense. I lost interest in the 24/7 division. I lost interest in a lot of stuff. that Raw and that WWE in general has done. But they're hinting this month, not really hinting, but this month is 25 years of The Rock. 25 years ago this month, The Rock made his debut at the 1996 Survivor Series, and the rest, they say, is history. You know, a year later, he would join the Nation of Domination and rise to superstardom. By 1998, he became WWF Champion for the first time. And then by time he had his last match, and I believe his last match was WrestleMania 32, and it was in 6 seconds against Eric Rowan. I don't think he's had a match since, but The Rock has... he's kind of done it all, you know. And from the world of wrestling to the world of Hollywood, The Rock has been there. The Rock has done everything there is for somebody like The Rock to do. But on top of the 25 years of The Rock did debut at Survivor Series. So, Survivor Series this year, I know when they did 25 years of The Undertaker showed up at Survivor Series. That was kind of, it was announced that the whole Survivor Series that night was based around his return and the WWE Championship tournament. But, what do you call it? He came back for that match with Kane when he took on the Wyatt family. And I don't remember if he fought the entire Wyatt family or if they just fought 2 members of the Wyatt family. But either way, The Undertaker came back and had that match. So I think at Survivor Series this year, either before Survivor Series or at Survivor Series, we'll get something, whether it's an in-person appearance, which would be fucking fantastic, or some kind of like video or something from The Rock. Now, if we can get an in-person appearance of The Rock at Survivor Series, I would absolutely lose my shit. The Rock is probably, after, you know, in like recent memory, like I've listed my top 5 ever since I was a kid. And I think, you know, going back and looking through everything, I think The Rock comes up the ranks more than he did, per se, 5 years ago for me. You know, I don't think I really ever considered The Rock to be in my top 5. I always placed him at like number 6. I know my top 5 growing up, it was Austin. Well, actually, my top 5, it was Taker, Mankind, or Mankind and Taker. Either way, I switched up a lot when I was a kid. It was Taker, Mankind, Kane, Austin, and Shawn Michaels, usually. Shawn Michaels and Triple H kind of fluctuated. But I think The Rock kind of comes in, you know, when you factor in not only his Hollywood superstardom, but I've been watching a lot of the older clips. I've been watching a lot of his older interviews, a lot of his older promos, and it's something that's missing in wrestling these days. Somebody who can hold the crowd in the palm of their hands like The Rock did. The Rock can come out, sniff the fucking air, and 20,000 people are creaming their pants in their seats. You know, all he has to do is come out and raise an eyebrow, and the crowd goes fucking nuts. That's something that's missing these days. Nobody can quite hold the crowd in the palm of their hands like The Rock. And so, again, 25 years of The Rock this year, and if he does show up at Survivor Series or some point before then, that'd be pretty big. Especially considering the fact that, you know, Roman Reigns doing the whole Tribal Chief thing. I know WrestleMania this year is going to be in Dallas, I believe. So that would be returning to the scene where he had his last match. He had his last match in Dallas, which was WrestleMania 32. And now for WrestleMania 38, he will be... I don't think it's going to be what everybody thinks it's going to be. If he shows up at WrestleMania, it's going to be an appearance. I don't think The Rock's coming back for a match yet until WrestleMania goes Hollywood. I don't think The Rock's coming back until WrestleMania goes Hollywood. And, so, I mean, this year, if The Rock does show up, that'd be pretty big. You know, if he has a stare down with Roman Reigns or something, that'd be pretty big. And if they do decide to do it at WrestleMania next year instead of in 2023, then so be it. But I don't know what to expect. I just know that this is 25 years of The Rock. And hopefully, like I said before, we get an appearance from the Great One in some capacity heading into Survivor Series or at Survivor Series itself. So that's basically, there's not really much else that I wanted to talk about today. I just want to come on and rant for a little bit, kind of get some things off my chest, kind of just talk a little bit. Because like I said, I missed it last week. I was absolutely sidelined last week. Before Halloween, thank God I was fine by Halloween. But that whole week leading up, that Thursday last week, I was an absolute disaster. Coughing and sneezing, and I couldn't even fucking breathe. But I'm better now. I'm a lot better now. And I am definitely glad to be back here doing another episode of the Wrestling All Day podcast. So I figured I'd come back on here, put over my local fed, rant a little bit, kind of get some things off. That sounded weird saying that out loud. But I can assure you this. In the next couple of weeks, I'll have a lot more to talk about. Especially heading into Survivor Series and Full Gear. AEW Full Gear coming up, and like I said, I don't watch the weekly stuff. I do watch the pay-per-views. That's about all I get out of my AEW action is the pay-per-views. Other than that, I really don't care. And before I do sign off, I do want to talk about what happened with Jon Moxley and Jim Ross. Now, these are two separate incidents. This isn't like a Jon Moxley and JR like started fucking fist fighting. No. Jon Moxley, it was recently announced, has checked into an inpatient rehab. So, I know fighting your demons can be fucking tough. Look at Jeff Hardy, look at the Usos, look at every wrestler who's died of an overdose or some kind of alcoholic-related bender or something that got them in a fuckload of trouble. I know fighting your demons can be tough, and I'm glad he's getting help. I know he just had a baby girl, I believe. It's not my business, I don't know. But I do know he just recently had a baby, so him getting himself the help he needs, so he can be there for his baby. That's wonderful. I'm glad he's getting the help that he needs. And for Jim Ross, again, this is a completely unrelated incident. Jim Ross put up a tweet a couple weeks ago, showing a growth on his leg, down by his foot, and he said he was going to get it checked out, and it turned out to be cancerous. So we wish all of the best to both Jon Moxley and Jim Ross. I know I talk shit on Jon Moxley a lot, especially because of, like the way things have gone. I don't know how to explain it, but the fact is, he's still a human being, and everybody deserves a chance at life. And if he's getting the help that he needs to be there for his baby girl, then, I can't ask for anything more. And he's got a boatload of support, of course. He's got support from Renee, his wife, got support from AEW, he's got support from his friends in the WWE, he's got his support from the wrestling community. So, this isn't something I'm going to use for an AEW versus WWE pissing match, because it's not something you can do. So I'm just glad he's getting the help he needs, and I'm glad that JR is going to be getting the help he needs. I believe they said he has to go through 22 radiation treatments. 22 radiation treatments. Which I never had cancer, and I hope that I never do. But that does not sound any kind of fucking pleasant. 22 radiation treatments. But I can only hope the best for Jim Ross. I can only hope for the best for Jon Moxley heading into, the future here for them. So best of luck to both of them on their journeys. I know JR said he's not going to be missing any work. JR is going to be there every week. And I know a lot of people, when it comes to Jim Ross, they're kind of on the fence. And I am too. I'll admit it. I'm on the fence too when it comes to JR and his commentary now. But I think we can all agree that cancer fucking sucks. And fuck cancer. So I believe that, everything for this, despite whether you're an AEW fan or whether you're a WWE fan, you could be pulling for him no matter what. So, with that in mind, I believe that is it for today. Everything I have to go through today, I believe that is it. There's not much else that I have to say. There's not much else that I want to say. So with that in mind, this has been the Wrestling All Day podcast. And like I said, in the next coming weeks, we're going to get back on track. we're really going to get ourselves back on track here because I've been falling behind, especially with being sick. I've been falling behind. So we're going to get ourselves back on track. And, from there, hopefully on the 13th, fingers crossed, hopefully on the 13th, I can get whether it's a quick 5-minute interview. Hopefully I can get a quick interview with some PPW guys for our show. And that'll be our special episode, our first big special episode. So, again, this is Wrestling All Day. It's all day, every day. And don't you forget it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.